Dan Rubenstein, it is the last week of the regular season. We did a part 1 for Rivalry Week back on Tuesday.
Yeah.
We've got a part 2 coming everybody's way right now. Rivalry Week part 2.
Thank you.
Thanksgiving in the good old US of A. A busy week in the Verballerhood. My good friend, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Great to be here. I'm doing great. I looked at the document because we did part 1 for all of the pre-Saturday action. I looked at part 2, which is just Saturday, and I just said to myself, too many bangers, too many games, too much greatness on the line, too much emotion. How do we do this all in one show? Well, friends, I'm here to tell you, we're going to try. Hey, real quick, it'd be great if you could consider subscribing to the YouTube channel down below. It really helps us out.
So look, throw out the records. It is Rivalry Week. We're going to go through all of these and much, much more. Yes. Before we do, though, just because we are interested in being completists, not going to yell. We have new college football playoff rankings. We talked about the Verballer top 12 on the last episode. Here is the actual top 12 per the powers that be, if that's something you care about.
All right.
Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, 1, 2, 3. Penn State still holding on at 4 over Notre Dame. Notre Dame hanging on over number 6, Miami. Number 7, 8, 9 are Georgia, Tennessee, and SMU cracking the top 10. Good for them.
Yes.
Indiana drops below Tennessee and below SMU to number 10. Boise at number 11. Clemson up 5 now to number 12. The first 4 out per this ranking system are number 13, Alabama, number 14, Ole Miss, number 15, South Carolina, number 16, Arizona State. Dan, any reaction to this? Do we gloss over it? Do we move on? Obviously, this is going to get a little bit weird after this weekend, will it not?
Oh, it will get weird, but this is basically our moment to say through, what are we at? Through 13 weeks of data points, this is where the committee has landed. And so we typically have said, most famously, like when TCU was in the top 4 a decade ago, and they destroy Kansas and do nothing to say that they're not a top 4 team, but they get jumped over, they get leapt over, whatever, by Ohio State that year, I believe.
Right.
That you're like, well, what did this team do that was so bad? In the case of Clemson at 12, it's particularly interesting because they have a high-profile opponent. They have an opportunity to cement themselves as a top 12 team by, that game's in Clemson, right?
Yep, that's correct.
By beating a headline rival. And it at least sets up the possibility that the ACC is going to get a couple teams in, which has been a question with the ACC and the Big 12. ACC more, I would argue, with now 3 ACC teams in the top 12 heading into the final week. So that's interesting to me. And so, just in all of these, it sets up the idea with Boise State. Now, we still have conference championship weekend, of course, but with Boise State where they are, with SMU where they are, with Tennessee where they are, and most of these teams where they are that are, angling for an at-large bid, that this is a significant statement by the committee heading into rivalry weekend. They're like, okay, this is how we view this team after, 11 games. And that should mean probably more than a single data point, but we'll see.
We'll see. The other thing that I think is of interest, if you look at this, Arizona State is at 16.
Also, yes, interesting.
It is the highest ranked Big 12 team per this ranking set. How that changes by beating Arizona, I don't know if it changes much by beating Arizona. Arizona's pretty bad. There could be teams in front of ASU that lose that essentially help to move up their standing within this ranking. But the Big 12 is in really interesting territory. I think you're probably looking at a win in a conference championship game that would move Arizona State up a little bit more and would insulate them perhaps from somebody like a Tulane.
Who's the second highest ranked Big 12 team at the moment?
I don't have it in front of me.
I do right now. So it is ASU at 16. It's Iowa State at 18.
Yeah.
So either way, if the Big 12 championship ends with Iowa State beating Arizona State, somebody who felt pretty damn good about being in this 12-team field is being booted.
Yeah, and furthermore, Tulane is at 17
Yes.
in the rankings. And so the place I'm going with this is the way that the rules are set up, your only guaranteed spots are for the top 5 ranked conference champions.
Right.
It
Or with the bye. Yeah.
It does not specify that they have to be power conference
Right.
victors. So there is at least a slim chance, and I don't think it's likely, but there is a slim chance that a team like a Tulane could sneak in ahead of a Big 12 champion, depending on how things go this weekend, right? I mean, a lot can go wrong, a lot can go haywire. The Big 12 is already kind of in this blender, but just something to kind of file away in the back of your mind. Tulane's sitting there at 9-2. Their only 2 losses to power conference opponents. They've been playing pretty well. There's a real chance here, if things really get haywire this weekend, if Tulane goes on to beat Army for that American title, that they could end up sniping that final spot. We'll see.
I was curious as for Texas A&M's rank, because Texas A&M losing in quadruple overtime on the road to Auburn, they sit at 20.
Yeah.
And so now we talk about the potential, albeit a low chance, but a chance, a potential leapfrog situation of Texas A&M at home beating Texas and beating Georgia in the SEC championship game, and the SEC potentially not getting a first round bye if Boise's taking care of business and finishes the season at 12-1.
Yep.
And they keep moving up with, teams ahead of them losing, whatever. I guess that's what would stand in the SEC's way of getting that bye, right?
It's wild, man. I tell you, there are some real interesting scenarios here.
Because I don't think it'll be Tulane standing in their way.
Probably not. It probably won't. I would assume that an A&M in the circumstance you described would leapfrog a Tulane, but
they'll leapfrog Tulane with a win against Texas.
With a win over Texas,
yeah.
Sure. We have gotten to the point now, though, where there are a limited number of games that can give you that upward mobility and a limited number of teams that actually have upward mobility given what's left. Obviously, if you're not playing a conference championship game, you got to show out this weekend. That's why we're going to get into Tennessee against Vandy, matchups like that have a little bit more significance than they might otherwise, given where Tennessee is at in the standings. So a lot to get in here. The other thing that I did want to point out, Dan, before we move on, the coaching carousel is starting to spin now, and North Carolina has made the move on Mack Brown.
Yes.
Mack Brown, notably a couple weeks ago, said he wasn't going anywhere. This followed reports from earlier in the season after that James Madison game where he kind of offered to resign if it would be helpful, and then everybody had his back. Mack didn't have any imminent plans to walk away. North Carolina has other ideas. North Carolina is going to move on from Mack Brown. He's going to coach this weekend against NC State. It's unclear right now if he's going to be in the bowl game or not. I would just call this out simply because right now, I suppose things could change. North Carolina is the top power job on the board. And I wonder if that's the reason they made the move. If they are kind of the darling job that is available right now at the Power 5 ranks, Power 4 ranks.
Power 4, and it's the only one, right? I believe.
The only one right now. So they have gotten a little bit of a head
it's
start.
Also the worst available power conference job available.
It's possible.
Yeah. No,
it's possible. But the fact that they are on the board early, trying to court some others who might be interested, I think is intriguing and puts UNC in a spot that I can't ever remember them being in. We'll see what they decide to do.
Yes.
But if you are either a lower level power whatever coach looking to move up, if you're a G5 looking to move up, if you're a hot coordinator looking to move up, UNC is out there. UNC is the name on the board right now that is courting any and all who are interested. So we'll see which direction they end up going.
Yeah, I saw Bruce mention John Sumrall in his first year at Tulane, Jamie Chadwell, who's been pretty successful at Liberty now after his Coastal time. Glenn Schumann is going to come up in these jobs because of how many games he has won as an assistant and coordinator. Arthur Smith came up because he's a North Carolina guy, and weirdly enough, they're like, and his dad is super loaded because of FedEx. There's a lot interesting there. It's a very good job.
It is a good job. Let's get to rivalry week, though. Are you ready?
Ready.
Let's do it.
Dan, time, help. I need picks of the week.
I didn't want to shortchange any games this week because we've got so many great rivalries. We are still going to do our big games at the top. We're going to do our part to rattle off all of the big named rivalries, the ones with the cool trophies, all the stuff that you actually care about. So if we do a little bit more rapid fire when we get to Quad Fathers in that segment, forgive us. We want to make sure we give every rivalry its due this week, if you're cool with that, Dan Rubenstein.
Yes, of course.
We do need to start, though, with the one they call the game, yeah?
Oh, my gosh, of course.
The game. Maybe the game isn't quite as big of a game in terms of national relevance as it was a year ago, but the game is still the game. It's at high noon. It's on Fox. It is Michigan at Ohio State. Ohio State playing another noon game. This is when they play their football.
Of course they are.
Ohio State favored by 21 at home. And look, did you see what Ryan Day had to say about this game?
I think he basically said losing this game has been the worst experience of his life, short of like things happening with his family, something like that.
Short of losing his father, he says losing this game has been the worst thing that has happened to him and his family.
Yes.
Which seems like a lot, personally. Seems like a lot, but
this is Michigan, Ohio State. Whether or not that is a good thing to have in our world, that you are devastated to the point of emotional destruction annually over this game, whether you're a fan, a coach, a player, whatever, that's the reality. I don't know.
I want to know from Ohio State people, does it make you feel better to hear him say that? Or does it make you wonder if the coach has a screw loose? Okay. That's all.
I think both can be sort of true. I don't think anybody doubts. I don't think any like rational college football fan feels as if their coach is not taking an incredibly huge storied rivalry seriously and personally. So I don't know how much better it makes you feel. The only thing that makes you feel better is winning.
To that end, Michigan has won the last 3. They have, as you might expect, effectively driven Ohio State, Ryan Day, a little bit crazy. And to an extent, this entire offseason was about loading up to beat Michigan, right? Even if Ohio State bombs out of the playoffs, which who knows, depends on their pathway through, this season on some level is going to be judged by, did you beat Michigan? Did you break the streak?
Right.
And they are a healthy favorite to do that. So I guess from the Michigan side, given where they have been this season, some of the obvious flaws that this team has that we know about at this point, is the best case scenario a look ahead spot for Ohio State with a likely game against Oregon on deck next week.
I mean, you're just not living in reality to think that in any capacity Ohio State's looking past Michigan.
I don't think they are.
Okay.
I think that is foolish to assume as much. I am trying to craft a universe in which Michigan actually has a chance to win this game.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That was what I came up with. There's a look ahead spot. The defense muddies it up. They keep it close. Basically due to Ohio State what Nebraska did to Ohio State the week before the Penn State game.
Sure.
Now,
take advantage of a line that is beat up and has shuffled bodies around, that has held up, I think, in pass blocking and pass protection.
Sure.
But
enormous stretch to me, Dan.
Okay.
I'm not saying I buy this. I'm trying. Is there another universe that you can craft that gives Michigan the dub over Ohio State for the fourth
I mean,
year?
it's just a Will Muschamp game. That's all it is. I mean, it's very easy to not see happening, but it's very easy to sort of imagine how it happens. And that's just turnovers and special teams and freak plays. And, Davis Warren hasn't been all that good of a quarterback for a very disappointing passing attack, but he hits a screen that, Mullings or whoever take for 83 yards randomly. That's uncharacteristic of Ohio State's defense, but this is college football. Freak plays happen, freak results, crazy close games happen, bad weather affects things. It's going to be freezing across the Midwest, below freezing across the Midwest. I don't know how that affects things. Likely not. These teams practice in this and train in this all year long. But yeah, it's your game simmed 100 times. This thing only happens 3 times out of 100.
I'm just not sure where the points are coming from for Michigan.
Sure.
I feel like a broken record. I've said that time and again here against better teams. The offense at this point is pretty telegraphed, and they are not the dominant ground team that they've been over the last couple seasons. And, you could say, okay, well, Indiana did get something going on the ground against Ohio State, which is true. To an extent, that's true. But Indiana also had a deep passing game. And I think the Buckeyes are far more interested in that side of their offense. That's why they took it away. They were content to let them run till they're blue in the face. Didn't matter.
Right.
Just don't beat us deep with the pass. Don't inch your way back in on the back of Curtis Rourke. I don't know where the points are coming from for Michigan. It seems like an entirely different situation. I think Ohio State clearly far and away is a better team. I think if they can, they're going to run it up. And I think they might have the chance. So I've got this one at 35-13 Buckeyes. I've got a big win. I've got a close cover. I think they break the streak here. Start a new one on their own. 35-13 is my final.
I have 45-13.
Wow.
I think it's limb from limb. I think you exercise demons, you leave in starters, even though Ohio State will have played a bunch of weeks in a row and a bunch of big games in a row, starting with last week and in Indiana.
No.
And I don't think there's real hangover just because there's no inspiration. You don't need to get up extra early. You don't need to pinch yourself to get excited for Ohio State, Michigan. So, yes, exercise demons. It's a Herb Brooks style again, because it's in Columbus. And so, yeah, short of Michigan overwhelming Ohio State's offensive line, which maybe they will at times. Maybe they'll get to Will Howard a little bit, collapse some pockets with those defensive linemen. They're good on the edge. Michigan did score 50 without any sort of consistent downfield passing last week against Northwestern. So that's a skill that, could they score 30 against Ohio State? I don't see it happening, but it's a skill to score 50 without a downfield passing attack.
Look, there is a school of thought that Michigan could just keep doing what it's done the last 3 years.
Sure.
Now, I don't think their line is as good. I don't think, as I said, they're a dominant ground team as they have been.
No Will Johnson. There's just...
But there's a school of thought, and I've seen it discussed online. Don't subscribe to this, that Michigan, why change it if it ain't broke? Just try and do the same thing that they have done and beat their brains in. Make the game muddy. It would have to be a close win, but just do that again and make Ohio State prove that they can stop it this year.
Yeah, they have to get off the field on 3rd or 4th and short, always, like Nebraska was able to do, like when Ohio State has had a slowdown on offense. They haven't been able to convert some of those higher leverage moments early on in games anyway. Yeah, that's what it would take. It would take Michigan winning 17-13, 20-17, something just wild that, there's maybe out of nowhere, there's crazy gusts of wind, sustained winds that completely slow down Ohio State through the air. Again, this is how you have to construct it, because otherwise, if it's just a straight up back and forth, it favors Ohio State immensely, 45-13.
I'm not going to dive into wild hypotheticals with this one. Just know there are some wild hypotheticals if Ohio State were to lose here. Okay.
If in the event that Ohio State loses, Penn State is in the conference championship game.
Penn State's in the conference championship game. Ohio State drops in the polls. I think they would have to be slotted somewhere in front of Indiana.
Yeah.
Starts to question whether Indiana gets in. It sets off a whole chain reaction of other questions, not the least of which is what happens to Ryan Day after the season. Okay?
What happens to Ryan Day? It's not a great loss if Ohio State loses to Michigan in terms of where Michigan has been this year.
No, I don't want to go there because this is inventing stuff out of thin air. But just know that there are a whole other series, a whole other universe of weird possibilities that will show its ugly face should Ohio State lose this one. But we throw out the records in the rivalry. I'm taking this game kind of in a vacuum, and I'm not trying to assume too much one way or another other than what we have seen this season, which is Michigan on offense is no bueno. So we'll see.
Yep. We agree.
3:30 on Fox. Territorial Cup, Dan.
Yes.
Arizona playing host to 9-2 Arizona State. Arizona State trying to get to 10-2. They are a 8.5 point favorite. This is a big game for ASU, to say the least. Arizona won by 36 a year ago. They've actually won the last 2. This season, Arizona has been the second worst FBS team against the spread, so they have not been good at covering at all. ASU, though, has almost exclusively played in one-score games against teams from power conferences. They have not been out there separating themselves in any kind of impressive capacity. So feels like something's got to give here. Arizona, very bad against the spread. Arizona State, not necessarily the team you want to rely on when the point spread is greater than a touchdown.
And Arizona State coming off of an enormous emotional last second, whatever you want to call the Kenny Dillingham on-field freak-out, horrible clock management, crowd rushes the field twice moment.
I'm going to go ASU here.
Same.
Arizona is capital B bad. And I wonder how much they've got left in the tank at this point.
They've had no tank this year.
They've had no tank. They're really limited on offense with how they can beat you. You know, it's Noah Fafita, it's T-Mac.
It's T-Mac or bust, yeah. And even that has not been a winning formula. It's been winning for everybody being able to ooh and ah over T-Mac's ability, but it hasn't translated to points.
The run blocking has not been good for Arizona either. It's just been very, very one-dimensional.
Yeah.
I can see a scenario in which Arizona State goes limb from limb and beats them by 40. I am not banking on that. I'm going to take a much more responsible approach here and say it's something like 31-20, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think ASU gets the road win. There is that question about what they've got left, given some letdown potential, but I just feel like they are playing with a full head of steam right now. And outside of maybe Kansas, Arizona State's probably the team in the Big 12 that nobody wants to play.
Yeah, I have 35-17 ASU. It's not like ASU is getting on a plane. This isn't Notre Dame, USC, or Oregon, Washington, where you're getting on a plane to play your rival. I believe Oregon, Washington would be getting on a plane, but certainly Notre Dame, USC, you're taking buses 2 hours down the road. So this isn't crazy in terms of travel. Even if there's a letdown effect, you get right up because it's the Territorial Cup, and ASU smells blood in the water. Kenny Dillingham, rightfully so, is absolutely ruthless, and this is a big recruiting spot, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And there's absolutely blood in the water with Arizona as one of this year's elite losers, so I have ASU big.
Also at 3:30, this one on ABC this year, not CBS.
Yep.
It's taken a little bit of getting used to, not going to lie. It is Auburn at 5-6. It is Alabama at 8-3. Bama is an 11.5 point favorite in the Iron Bowl. This game, more often than not, has very weird energy.
Yeah.
There are weird things that have happened with respect to this game. Now, Bama's won the last 4. Since 2018, this game has alternated between being a blowout and being a close Alabama win.
Yeah.
Last year, it was 27-24 Alabama. So if the pattern holds, then we'd be looking at a blowout this year. The point spread is saying blowout. The point spread at 11.5 is saying double digits. What is Dan Rubenstein saying?
I have Alabama covering this, and I went back and forth. I don't think they'd cover whatever it would be on the road, 8-9 points against Auburn. But there is something, and look, Auburn players, as exhausted as they are after last week's quadruple overtime win, it's also kind of a proof of concept that Auburn can finish and hang with a perceived superior team. So I'm not discounting that. I just think an on Alabama, as evidenced against, I guess it was Drew Pine, Mizzou, or against LSU, and on Alabama, if they're able to game plan something that isn't just Jalen Milroe left and right, that they can put up points, that they can get stops, that Peyton Thorne, for as fun as some of his bigger throws this year have been, is still pretty turnover prone. And on the road in the Iron Bowl, even with Peyton Thorne nearly beating Alabama last year, I just think if Alabama is kind of on, they win this game by 20. If they're fully off once again, and they are down on themselves, and Kalen DeBoer is not able to get this team up after last week's loss to Oklahoma, that says more about Kalen DeBoer. But what's this dude's record in November? What's this dude's track record in getting teams up for really huge rivalry games late in the season?
Man,
it's really good.
I could not disagree with you more on this pick.
Okay.
Auburn's my home dog of the week.
The Yakos, home dog of the week.
I'm not going to act like I'm crazy about Auburn.
Okay.
They look good last week.
Yeah.
The main thing for me is that Auburn's got a solid defense, and Alabama's offense feels very telegraphed.
At times, yeah.
It's very Jalen Milroe centric. That's part of why we liked Oklahoma last week, was it not?
It is.
Good defense against an offense that's entirely dependent on one player. I think Auburn can ugly it up. I think they can do enough on offense to keep it within striking distance. I think, again, this is something like 27-24 Alabama. I would not be surprised if Auburn won this game outright. This just feels to me like a good spot for Auburn. They absolutely want to get bowl eligible. They need this one to get bowl eligible. It's on the road at Tuscaloosa, which is not an easy place to play by any stretch, but this rivalry tends to be real weird. I don't know. I see a close game here. I will happily take 11.5 points.
They scored 7 points against Vanderbilt like 3 weeks ago.
I know. It doesn't always need to make sense though in the Iron Bowl.
And getting up for Vandy is different than getting up for Alabama. I am still track record with, if you have the quarterback advantage, which I think Alabama still does.
Sure.
If you have the head coaching advantage, which to me, Alabama still does, you're playing at home. And while the Auburn defense has gotten to be at times scary good, and love Jarquez Hunter, if you have a quarterback who is to this extent a wild card with turnovers, I can't get on board.
I get it. I understand the logic.
I'm either going to be crazy right or crazy wrong with almost nothing in between.
This is just a much more flawed Alabama team than we are used to.
Agree.
And it is somewhat telegraphed.
Okay.
It is. It is highly dependent on Jalen Milroe to go out there and make a play.
Yeah.
And if we know it, certainly a team like Auburn with a good defense also knows it.
Agree.
They've seen all the tape now. They know. I don't know. 27-24 Alabama.
All right. We disagree.
Let's stay in the 3:30 block. They call it the Battle for the Jeweled Shillelagh. It's on CBS. Still taking some time to get used to that. Notre Dame 10-1 minus 7.5 points on the road at USC. USC sitting at 6-5. Notre Dame won by 28 last year. This year it's winning in with the new playoff format. We just talked about the rankings earlier. They're 5th. A win gets them a home playoff game in all likelihood. It depends on seeding, depends where things shake out. Probably as a 5, 6, 7 seed, somewhere in that neighborhood, they end up hosting a playoff game. Depends where you look, depends on your projections. Some have them against SMU, others have them against Boise.
Sure.
I've seen some against Tennessee. It varies pretty widely right now because we just are grasping. But we will see what happens if and when they end up winning this game, but they got to win this one first, Dan.
Agree.
I've been surprised at your level of confidence regarding Notre Dame in this matchup. You seem to be fully sold on Notre Dame beating USC because you're fully out on SC. You've sold all your SC stock.
Yes and no. I took a more 10,000 foot view of Notre Dame and their schedule. How many true road games have they played this year?
Like
they
2,
played
3?
A&M and Georgia Tech, I want to say.
Georgia Tech was in Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, they played Purdue. They played, obviously, the Texas A&M game to start the year. They've played other games away from home that were neutral site. But in terms of true road games, there've only been 2.
Right. And how many, let's call it decent quarterbacks have they faced this year? 1 in Tyler Shock?
Probably. Yeah. I mean,
Notre Dame's schedule is benched, Mac, benched and bad, Mac, decent Tyler Shock, not good at Stanford, backup at Georgia Tech. That was Pyron, right? That's his name. Yeah. Navy, not a thrower. Florida State, not good. Virginia, not good. Army, not a thrower.
Right.
I just don't know. I think it's weird to go this far into the season, and maybe people would argue like, this is Notre Dame every year. Join a conference, cowards, blah, blah, blah. But we just don't have a concept. Notre Dame down their best corner. Defense irrefutably strong. They're performing as a good defense should against this schedule. USC has been winning in every fourth quarter, right? Yeah. I saw the stat today that they're one of 5 or 6 teams to have won in every fourth quarter, and they've lost 5 games.
Yeah.
And the other 5 or 6 teams have combined to lose 5 games.
Yeah, they've led every fourth quarter.
They've led every fourth quarter.
Something ridiculous. Yeah.
USC is nothing if not a competitive weekly team who is prone to gacking away games at the end. Better at home, games in LA. I'm taking points here.
No.
I am taking points here. If there's something USC gives up, it's big passes. If there's something Notre Dame doesn't do, it's generate consistent, successful downfield passes. Now, Riley Leonard's gotten better. They've become a more efficient, complete offense, but there's not a consistent deep threat element to this offense. And maybe that's just because they haven't had to do it because they just stomp everybody. I think USC loses this game. The score, the spread once again is 7.
7.5. I got it at.
Yeah, I think it's a close loss for SC. It's something in the range of 27-23 because that's kind of SC's MO this year.
Kind of their MO.
They'll be winning 23-20 with 8.5 minutes left, give up a touchdown, and Mayava throws a back-breaking pick or something in the end zone late.
I
only managed 19 against UCLA last week, by the way.
I started from that point.
Yeah.
I started from that point, and I tried to convince myself otherwise. I try to convince myself because, my inclination would be to go points here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
To go points here. Rivalry game, traveling cross country, a lot riding on it. USC, if nothing more, has been plucky against some better teams on their schedule. They almost beat Penn State. They probably should have beaten Penn State.
Right.
So that was my starting point. I just come down on really liking the matchup for Notre Dame.
Okay.
Because I think they're much more physical in the trenches on both sides.
Agree.
And I think Riley Leonard kind of breaks what USC wants to do on defense, which is blitz the crap out of you. That's what they've done all year. They blitz the crap out of you. And the irony here is that though they're blitzing a lot, their sack rates, their pressure rates are very low, which is basically a long way of saying that in this case, if you're overcommitting against a mobile quarterback, that's not something that generally works.
True.
I have not seen that generally work in college football. I am not a defensive coordinator. It seems like a bad formula to me. Riley Leonard is that mobile quarterback. Riley Leonard is obviously the focal point of this offense. Riley Leonard is also very good at avoiding sacks in his own right. His sack avoidance, I've said this a million times, very, very good. He's good at avoiding the sacks. He just knows where pressure's coming from. Not always the best quarterback out there, but he's good at not getting taken down.
True.
I would be a lot more worried about this if it were Miller Moss.
Yeah, that's where I went back and forth.
See,
that the numbers and the competitive nature of these USC games have not necessarily been on the back of Jaden Mayava.
That's exactly right. If it were Miller Moss, I think I would be with you and I would go points. But though I like Jaden Mayava and the mobility that he brings, he is still relatively green. And I just think Notre Dame's going to dare him to throw into the defense. And I think that's where we see some mistakes. So I think this is a good game. I don't think this is a runaway train by any stretch. And I think we're going to learn something a lot, hopefully, about Notre Dame and what they've got in the tank against a better opponent. This is the best opponent they've played in a while. 31-17 is my final for Notre Dame. I think they pull away late. Again, I think they win this game the way they've been winning games, which is they're going to grind you down. They're going to make you make decisions against Riley Leonard, who is mobile, who they can put on the run, who they can do RPO stuff with. I think he will put this linebacking core especially in a bit of a bind. And it is that matchup that eventually ends up working for Notre Dame, 31-17.
Okay, we disagree. And everything you said is totally reasonable. And for me to pick against a team that has an advantage on neither line, nor do they have an advantage at quarterback, their real big advantage is, or not big advantage, but they seem like that their depth of skill is at least a little bit, might have a higher ceiling, given that Lincoln Riley has that background offensively. And look, Mike Denbrock is very good, obviously.
Sure.
But that would be the advantage that those big offensive plays, if everything is working out for both teams, might have an advantage, or might be USC's advantage. But no, I think everything you said is sound. This is sort of like a little bit of hoping to watch Notre Dame play a competitive game rather than truly feeling great about USC actually winning a game like this.
Again, if it were Miller Moss, I would feel much differently.
Yeah.
The fact that it's Jaden Mayava,
Look, it might be Miller Moss in the second quarter. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
I think he might be done. Yeah.
7:30 on ABC. This is kind of the big and other weekend. Texas 10-1, Texas A&M 8-3. Texas is a 5-point road favorite. It goes without saying that this is an enormous game. This would be an enormous game if the stakes weren't already so high.
Right.
But the way things have gone now in the SEC, the winner of this game is playing Georgia for the SEC title. It's a big deal. Very big game. Kyle Fields going to be rocking. 5 points is a spread, Dan.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I'm taking A&M. I don't love it. I'm going with the home team with not the superior defense, but what can be an excellent defense in an environment that will be bloodthirsty.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because I have seen this question pop up
Please.
a fair amount recently because of the playoff stuff, and I don't think we've really addressed it here. Have we been giving Texas too much benefit of the doubt? You know, because a lot of the arguments, a lot of the arguments that people have made about strength of schedule. I'm not saying it's Notre Dame. I'm not saying it's Penn State. I'm not saying it's Indiana, right? But strength of schedule on the Texas side has been something that has kind of come up here and there. Is Texas getting too much benefit of the doubt right now? And is this a game in which that is kind of shown?
I think they're getting too much offensive benefit of the doubt, if anything. That I don't know if it's a rankings benefit of the doubt because they're still winning games, and while you can question the strength of their schedule, and that's fine, and the quarterbacks who played in those games, that's fine, but I don't have a convincing argument to put a different team above Texas in this moment. So I'll say, for the sake of predicting games, for prognostication, yeah, maybe we are overrating Texas's ability to take care of business against good teams because haven't seen it this year.
Right.
It's just a mystery box. So in this situation, I'm taking Texas A&M because they're at home, bloodthirsty crowd, huge emotional spot. Quinn Ewers beat up. Texas on the road has not been lights out on offense this year. And I'm just going to wager, as much as I'm not enamored with this beat up Texas A&M offense, but I think they can pull this out based on where Texas is or where they haven't been. I just think it's a tough situational spot for Texas being a road favorite where just 2-3 weeks ago against Arkansas, they struggled to separate on the road.
Right.
That I don't know. I'm not enamored with Texas on offense this year in the way that I thought I'd be. So I'm going to go A&M bouncing back from a big emotional loss because, again, you don't need to figure out how to muster the emotion and will to get up for the return of Texas against A&M. So I'm going A&M outright to win this game. 24-20. Yeah.
Outright
At home.
Man.
They're my home dog of the week, by the way. How about that?
Oh, okay.
The Yakos, home dog of the week.
I want to watch the A&M.
Offense is just off for Texas. I don't know.
Yeah. I want to watch the A&M front against the Texas offensive line.
Yeah.
In particular, we saw what Georgia did to the Texas offensive line. Is A&M good enough to replicate that? They're certainly good enough to try. And I think they should, because you mentioned Quinn Ewers is banged up. He's out there on a bum ankle. This is an offense that, to your point, has sort of struggled to separate, especially on the road. We've just gotten done talking about it. Frankly, we talked about it on Tuesday. Where is this next gear for the Texas offense? Does it have a next gear? It feels like a Sark offense should be a little bit better than this with all the artillery they've gotten. Why isn't it? Now, I do question if Marcel Reed has the juice to beat Texas.
I question that too.
I like Marcel Reed. Does he have enough juice to beat this Texas defense? I don't know. I do love the spot for A&M, though, and I also have them outright. I've got it 26-23.
I love that from you.
I've got it 26-23. I probably should have made him my home dog as well, but I was enamored with that Auburn pick. This would be an incredible victory for A&M. This would throw a lot into question with regard to the playoff.
Mm-hmm. And
part of me is sort of enamored with that storyline. It may have influenced my pick here a little bit. But bear in mind, they are restarting this rivalry for the first time since 2011, way back when Mac Brown knocked off Mike Sherman 27-25.
Is that a Case McCoy game?
I believe so.
Yeah.
It has been so long since we had this game. I find it hard to believe that any one team is going to blow out the other. So I'm taking points, and I'm taking A&M outright.
Oh, man, we agree. By the way, that was Case McCoy, 16 of 27, 4.1 yards per attempt, taking down Ryan Tannehill, who threw 3 picks, 4.6 yards per attempt. Malcolm Brown on the ground for Texas. Ben Molina on the ground for Texas A&M.
Former Angels catcher Ben Molina?
Ben Molina, one of the Molina brothers. Yeah. Took a stab at running the ball 25 times in a rivalry game. Marquise Goodwin out wide with Jackson Shipley for Texas. I when I looked at Texas's schedule, again, through no fault of their own, what have we seen against Texas with a good defensive line and a decent quarterback?
No. I don't know.
Lose to Georgia.
No.
And that's kind of it. Like, Kentucky's got that good front, but they don't have the decent quarterback. Oklahoma's got that decent front. They didn't have a good quarterback. Florida, decent front. It was an Aiden Warner game. Like, it just, again, doesn't mean they can't beat A&M. They most certainly can beat A&M. They can beat A&M by 2 touchdowns. It's just been a long year of not seeing it. That's all.
Think about the heart, the passion, the love, the commitment, and the energy you're willing to put into it.
All right, the Quad Fathers segment's going to be a little different this time around. We've just got a bunch of games that we need to call out. You can pick your own quads, but there are a bunch of cool rivalries that I think we need to discuss here. We will start at high noon on ABC. Tennessee 9-2, Vanderbilt 6-5. Tennessee needs to win against Vandy. They are a 10.5 point favorite. Vandy now with Diego Pavia has a chance to beat an in-state rival, has a chance to knock the in-state rival out of the playoffs. I would presume out of the playoffs if Tennessee finishes with 3 losses. Does Vandy have more magic left, Dan?
I think they have covering magic. I'm going to take the points.
Okay.
I don't feel confident about Vandy scoring enough to beat Tennessee, though I'm not crazy high on Tennessee's offense this year. I think they've slowly improved. So I'm going to say, 27-20, 24-17, somewhere in that. I'm going to take points here. Vandy as a home dog.
This one was Tennessee -12 when I made the doc.
Yeah.
And since then, it's come down a little bit. For as much as I'd like to go Vandy to make it really uncomfortable for the playoff committee, let's be real, that's all I care about. I think the combination of Tennessee's defensive front with their ability to throw the ball.
I'm with you.
I think that's more than enough to get the W. I'm kind of looking at this one like I did South Carolina against Vandy with their defensive front.
Isn't it? Now, it would have been better if, for this specific game, if Vandy barely lost to Alabama, because obviously Tennessee will have, or Tennessee's attention will be fully squared on Vandy here. There is something about, you use, what is the term you use? Like controlling their own destiny. There is something that, like, Diego Pavia is just destined to hurt people's feelings.
I think this is his last regular season game. He lost that appeal that I don't know where things stand in the court case to try and get another year of eligibility.
He wanted a stay of some kind.
Yeah, with junior college eligibility and whatnot. I think this is probably going to be his last home game, short of the bowl, whatever bowl they end up going to. So maybe there's more magic in there. I'm all for it, but
and they're going to a bowl, but
I've got it at 27-14 Tennessee winning and covering going into the playoff.
Disagree. He's going to hurt feelings.
12 o'clock ESPN, South Carolina 8-3, Clemson 9-2. Clemson favored by 2.5 in the Palmetto Bowl. Dan, I'm going South Carolina outright here.
As am I.
I'm going outright. In Clemson, this would be a big win. To get them to 9-3, I just genuinely think they're the better team. I love their defensive front. Clemson, I've come around on Clemson. I feel like I have a weekly sort of check-in with Clemson where I'm not sure how I feel about them, but generally I think it's shown improvement throughout the course of the year. I just kind of like South Carolina more and their defensive front. So give me the Gamecocks.
Yeah, it's just a consistency thing for me that South Carolina appears to be peaking right now. Nearly lost to Mizzou, but I think actually Mizzou has finally come into their own. It's taken long enough. So I'm going to go South Carolina here. There is something about the trust of recent performances that I don't have with Clemson. I think Clemson's very good. I think Dylan Stewart, have saw that there's some like public negotiations on what his NIL number is going to be next year.
Okay.
He might add like a quick 300K
Yeah.
by performing in this one. So yeah, I'm going to go South Carolina here by the touchdown.
Also at noon in the SEC, it is the Governor's Cup. It is Louisville in SEC territory. Lexington, Kentucky, scoring off against their in-state rival, Kentucky Wildcats. A battle of 7-4 against 4-7. Louisville favored by 4. Who's taking home the Governor's Cup, Dan?
I have Louisville here, and I don't know if Kentucky had average quarterback play or proven average quarterback play. They made the change. Brock Vandegrift will not be starting this one. It's going to be my guy Butter Coley. Yes, Butter Coley.
But
I think Louisville is just too solid. The defense is average, but I don't think Kentucky has the offense to take advantage, even though some of the skill on that team is good. I just don't think they're a buttoned up enough team right now. So I have Louisville winning this one outright, covering with relative ease, something like 31-16.
yeah, and Louisville's actually played well against the better teams in their schedule. They beat Clemson,
Hung with
pounded
Stanford. Yeah.
pounded Pitt, almost beat Miami. They hung with Notre Dame. The Stanford loss was not great.
Right.
However, they're absolutely good enough to beat a team like Kentucky,
Yeah.
which kind of feels in disarray right now. So I'm with you.
That was across the country, too, for Louisville. Stanford lost. Yeah.
12 o'clock, ESPN2, Kansas minus 1.5 points. This line has shifted in favor of Kansas against the Baylor Bears, Dan. I'm 190% on Kansas here.
Oh, man. I love it. I fully disagree.
190%. They're the one team in the Big 12 I would not want to play right now.
Okay.
Even more so than ASU. I'm on Kansas.
I think they're out of gas.
Oh.
With this not really being a rivalry game, I think Baylor has done enough, both at home and on the road. I'm going Baylor here against this Kansas defense to take advantage, get off the field enough. Not a great defense, but get off the field enough. I have Baylor winning this one by, 3 or 4 points.
2 named rivalries that will move to the afternoon slate. 12 o'clock, Big Ten Network. It's the Land of Lincoln Trophy.
Yeah.
Have you seen this, by the way? Have you seen the trophy?
You sent it to me. It looks beautiful.
Is that not a cool friggin' trophy? The
Golden looking top hat.
The top hat? I love it.
It's great.
I hadn't seen it before. Illinois 8-3, Northwestern 4-7. Illinois favored by 7.5 points. Any reason to go Northwestern here?
No, I mean, it's Wrigley Field, I guess. I don't know. No, I have Illinois big.
Illinois big. Okay. ESPNU, they call it the Battle on the Bayou. Matchup between Louisiana at 9-2. They're a 9.5 point favorite on the road at Louisiana Monroe. Battle on the Bayou, Dan.
Yes.
Monroe's been a good story. They can
have
get bowl
been.
eligible with the win.
Monroe has lost 5 straight, which I don't love against not so good defenses other than Auburn. I'm going with Louisiana to win this one and cover on the road.
They're much better.
Yep.
Louisiana's much better, especially on offense.
Yep.
So I think I'm with you. Okay. Let's get to the afternoon block, yeah?
Please.
Welcome to the pain zone, is where we live.
Let's go to the pain zone. Could this be the pain zone for the Miami Hurricanes?
I have Syracuse.
3:30 ESPN. Miami at 10-1 is an 11-point favorite. On the road at Syracuse. Syracuse 8-3, very quietly 8-3. I'm expecting a lot of points. Vegas is expecting a lot of points. They've got the over-under at 67.5.
On a fast track in a dome.
JMA Wireless Dome, Dan.
Yeah.
One of the weirdest places that you could play, especially against a weird coach who does not shower if he doesn't win.
Mm-hmm.
So the impetus is obvious, I think, for Miami. You win. You qualify not just for the ACC title game, but most likely for the playoff as well. Is Syracuse good enough to cover this point spread?
Yes. They're also good enough to lose by 30, but I think they're good enough to cover as well. Yeah.
Is Syracuse the kind of team that is good enough to lose by 1 score against everybody on its schedule? Maybe with the exception of Pitt.
I think probably.
They feel like one of those teams.
Even that Pitt game, that was just a bunch of pick sixes.
5 interceptions for Kyle McCord in that game.
Yeah.
I just wonder if Syracuse is the style team that's going to find a way, come hell or high water, to keep this one close. 11 feels like a lot. I understand why it's at 11. Miami is obviously very, very good on offense, led by Cam Ward. I'm going with the Franimal, baby.
I'm going with the Franimal, too.
I got it at 38-31 Miami. Wouldn't surprise me if Syracuse won the game outright because of the Franimal, because it's a weird place to play, because Syracuse has a tendency to do this to teams. So I'm going Miami, but not covering.
They've run well, Syracuse has. And there is still something about Miami where you want to be my top 5 team. You want to be my top 8 team. And I know it was a special teams thing, and it was kind of a weird situation against Wake Forest. What's the score going into the fourth quarter last week? 20-14?
Yeah.
For as good as Miami can be at so many different things on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
First half separation, first 3/4 separation, it just hasn't been a thing for this team. This team is not a take care of business team, and now you're going to fly up to Syracuse, New York, play in a dome, and figure it all out to win this game against a decent Syracuse team. I think they can win. I think they should win. I have them winning, but I have them winning 35-31.
All right.
So
We agree then, I
involved.
guess. We agree.
We agree. Yeah.
3:30 ESPN2, another ACC matchup. Weird as it may sound to say, Cal on the road at SMU. SMU favored by 13.5 points at home. This seems like far too many points to me.
It's just too many points to me. Yeah, I don't
That's
think
way
Cal.
too
And
many
now
points.
it's a letdown spot for Cal, having beaten Stanford in a big emotional spot, now traveling to Texas. I just think it's too many points.
It feels to me, though SMU has been really solid down the stretch, and though I think they are getting a little bit better each week, given the fact that they've punched their ticket to the ACC title already, there's a look-ahead spot here.
Yeah.
There's a look-ahead spot. I would not want to be in a look-ahead spot against a Calgorithm.
No.
One more chance to put one final scare into a notable team. From the Deep South, mind you.
Right.
34-31 SMU wins, but only barely.
So you have like a certain amount of calculus, and it's not limited to SMU here. A calculus of like how many games do we actually have left if we are looking at a playoff berth? How much do we want to show? How much are we willing to put out there? How long are we willing to leave starters in? If you are a lot of these teams, Miami, SMU, any of Tennessee, if they're up reasonably so against Vanderbilt, Oregon, like Ohio State, that you want to have enough in the tank to get to early January, middle of January, late January, whatever. No team is fully prepared to do this because nobody team has potentially played as many games as some of these teams will by the end of the year. And so I think you're looking at a number of coaches who are trying to think about this in a newly smart way. Maybe it'll work out for them, maybe it won't. But I think a game like this, I think, is certainly an example of where it could happen, where you're just like, let's just win, stay healthy, pull this guy who's been beat up early, and maybe that allows somebody back into the game a little bit, but we'll win.
No.
I think that's where we are with SMU Cal.
3:30 Big Ten Network, Maryland, a 24.5-point dog on the road at Penn State. Penn State leads this series 43-3.
Yeah.
This game is almost never close. I think Penn State is going to lay the wood, Dan.
Yeah.
As we say. 41-14 is my final. I got Penn State big.
44-10. Yeah.
We agree. We're very close again. 3:30 FS1. Rutgers 6-5. Michigan State 5-6. Michigan State needs to win. They are a 1-point favorite.
Rutgers hurts feelings. Rutgers is going to win this game by 3.
I love Michigan State here.
Really?
Oh, I love them.
I mean, it wasn't a great game against Purdue, but okay.
I'm treating this one like it's some sort of playoff game, truly.
To get bowl eligible in year one?
To get bowl eligible in year one, Jonathan Smith. Yeah. Yeah, we disagree. I'm going to go Michigan State. I also have listed here NC State on the road at North Carolina. North Carolina, I have -3.5. I don't know if that's changed since I made the doc, but Mac Brown's been fired. NC State needs to win this one and get bowl eligible. I'm on Wolfpack here. Give me the Wolfpack.
Oh, man. I'm on North Carolina in Mac's final game. I think they run wild.
A few named rivalries that I did want to call out here.
Yeah.
And then, of course, one other one.
Did you say BC Pitt?
I was going to get to BC Pitt.
Okay,
as well.
just making sure.
BC Pitt. All right. So Pitt's 7-4. They're a 5-point road dog against Boston College, who is favored at home. You have a lean?
Oh, I love Boston College here.
Do you?
I think Pitt's season has collapsed from beneath it with Eli Holstein's injury, a couple other key injuries. I think Boston College is in a nice place, so I have them winning.
The three named rivalries that I wanted to call out, the Battle Line rivalry. This is Arkansas at 6-5 against Mizzou at 8-3. Mizzou is favored by 3. I've got the Battle of I-10 between UTEP and New Mexico State. Both teams are bad, but who cares? It's a cool rivalry. New Mexico State favored by 2. And then we've got Deeper Than Hate. You got to say it in that tone. You can't say Deeper Than Hate. It's Deeper Than Hate.
Yeah.
App State at 5-5 on the road at Georgia Southern, which is 7-4. Georgia Southern favored by 2.5 points. Got to lean on any of those games.
I'm going Georgia Southern. I'm going New Mexico State, and I'm going Mizzou. I'm going home teams in an advantage spot. Mizzou, as I mentioned, they've come into their own a little bit right there, about to beat South Carolina. Obviously didn't go their way, but no, Mizzou generating bigger plays more recently. As much as I like Arkansas's offense, I like Arkansas overall, but they haven't been able to pull out games. I'm going Mizzou here to finish strong and have an opportunity to finish the season with 10 wins.
10 wins. I'm with you on all 3 of those, by the way.
Okay.
All 3 of those, we agree. Let's get to the night and late
Wait.
night.
What? Fresno State, UCLA? TCU, Cincinnati?
Go ahead. What do you got?
Give me a quick. I have Fresno State the week after for UCLA, the week after a rivalry game against a non-headline opponent. As much as I respect Fresno State, I think Fresno State on the road here can cover. TCU, I think, beats Cincinnati. They've been performing better and better on offense. Earlier on, by the way, I have West Virginia over Texas Tech, Duke over Wake as well in that early window. I'm going with the road teams there. West Virginia better away from Morgantown, and I like the Duke defense a lot against Wake. Now we can move on.
Let's move on now.
You have to achieve failure. You have to take it that far. Nobody wants to go that far. It's too scary. But you know something? I got news for you. That's where winning is.
That's where winning is, Dan.
Yep.
Our final quad here of the regular season. I guess we won't have quads next week. The whole thing's a big quad.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to put this game on the document.
So disrespectful.
I forgot to put Washington against Oregon on the document. After all of the baggage from a year ago, and really throughout the rich history of this matchup, I forgot to put Washington against Oregon. So I apologize.
Okay. It's okay.
I mean no disrespect. It's an NBC game. It is Washington at 6-5. It is your Oregon Ducks at 11-0. Oregon is a 19-point favorite.
Yeah.
Is there any universe in which Oregon does not absolutely lay the lumber to Washington in this game?
Well, at the risk of echoing myself picking against Washington both times last year and being wrong both times, it's trending in that way. Washington went on the road. Now it's cross country. It's a little bit different than staying in the Pacific Northwest. What was the final score against Penn State a few weeks ago? Like 35-6?
Yeah.
Something like that. They had to make a quarterback change. The turnovers were there. I think even with Oregon not playing an A game on offense, I think the defense will get off the field often enough with Washington having some quarterback questions going between, Will Rogers leaving the game for a couple of straight big games. I think it was against UCLA. They pulled him after another suspect performance.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think Oregon's able to turn over Washington. I think they're going to be able to run on Washington. Washington has good defensive stats against the pass, but really the quarterbacks faced have been pretty disappointing, just like, in the instance of Notre Dame's schedule. So it didn't work out against Penn State when they actually had to play against a decent offense. I don't think it's going to work out against Oregon. And obviously, Dan Lanning has done a very good job motivating this team this year, pulling away from teams even without, putting in an A performance. So I have 45-14, 42-14, 42-17, something in that. Oregon hasn't been a team to score 40 this year. They haven't been that team, but I think there's something special about this game.
Yeah, I'm not feeling Washington in this matchup here. I think Oregon's about as close to a complete team as we have seen so far this season. And I like him in this matchup to exact some revenge. I have to imagine, given what we know of Dan Lanning, he's playing up that angle. Lost to him twice last year, right? I mean, that's just sort of his jam. Give me Oregon minus the number.
Yeah, I really don't even think Oregon has an incredible offensive game. I just think that the game gets away from Washington in too many phases.
7:30 on Fox. They call it Farmageddon. My favorite nickname.
It's great.
Kansas State at 8-3, Iowa State at 9-2. Iowa State favored by 2.5 points. Look, I have no idea who's winning this game. This game feels dead even to me. I looked at maybe 2 or 3 other projection systems. Everyone has this as even.
Yeah.
Everyone has this as even. I'm looking at this one. I'm saying, all right, it's a cold night in Ames. I want the better running team. And I think that team is K-State. So give me K-State outright. That throws the Big 12, mind you, perhaps into a further state of disarray because of the ASU win. It would mean that ASU potentially rematch scenario, conference championship game next week. Like, I'm not going to talk through all of these things, but Kansas State beating Iowa State could mean some really weird things in this conference. I just think they're the better running team, and I like their matchup here. So give me Kansas State outright.
Can you can't calculate on the fly for me. I know you had some sort of web app available to you.
I can. What do you want?
Kansas State winning, Arizona winning.
Kansas State winning.
Arizona both Iowa
winning?
State and ASU losing.
Okay. In the event that happens, it's BYU Colorado.
Okay.
For the conference championship.
Those are eliminators. All right. Good to know.
Exactly. And I do have in this block as well, another game to keep tabs on is the Houston versus BYU game, because Houston beating BYU is the one that unlocks true weirdness. We made a video about this. We talked about this on the Tuesday episode that we put out there. Houston beating BYU, also Cincinnati beating TCU. If both of those things happen and the rest of the lot in the Big 12 is chalk, that's the only instance in which Arizona State could win and would not be into the conference title game.
But I don't understand. So if ASU finishes the season with 2 losses,
right,
and Iowa State finishes the season with 2 losses,
right,
how does BYU getting a 3rd loss throw ASU out of it?
It would be so what we'd be looking at is a scenario in which Colorado also has 2 losses and Iowa State has 2 losses.
2 conference losses.
2 conference losses. Essentially, because of the way that the tiebreakers are set up, it would unlock a scenario in which we're looking at opponents and conference winning percentage.
Ahead of full record, which
Correct.
Obviously Colorado has a 3rd loss overall to Nebraska.
That's right. And so in that instance, because Houston would knock off BYU, because they would give them a loss, and because of the way that other tiebreakers would shake out, Arizona State would not get the nod. It would go to Iowa State and Colorado. Wow. But that's the only instance in which it happens. The only instance in which it happens is Houston beating BYU, Cincinnati beating TCU, the rest of it being chalk.
And Arizona State would obviously have the tiebreaker over BYU because of head-to-head.
Arizona State would have the tiebreaker over BYU, but they would not have it in that instance over both Iowa State and Colorado, who would go to the conference title game. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Crazy.
I trust you.
Craziness.
I have BYU winning this game.
I have BYU winning as well.
And this is one of those matchups, too, where I have a lot of doubts about Houston's offense. And so is the spread still 12.5?
12.5.
Before looking at the spread and considering the number itself, I said, okay, Houston's defense has been consistently pretty good, has gotten stronger over the course of the season. BYU's offense, while at times shaky or not, they're not super prone to like a crazy number of turnovers. So, I don't know, 23 points sounds reasonable. I don't see Houston getting more than 10, so I had a 23-10, and it's 12.5. So I guess I'm rolling with giving those points.
Got to do it, man.
Yeah.
Got to do it. Who did you pick in Farmageddon, by the way?
In Farmageddon, I'm going with Iowa State.
You're going to Iowa State.
I'm going with the home team. It's going to be freezing cold. I have them winning by, I don't know, 5 or 6 points. How off and inconsistent Kansas State's offense has been on the road. Even if Iowa State's own defense hasn't been typically very good as it has been these past few years, I'm going with the Clones at home.
A couple other named rivalries that we got to call out.
Yeah.
Commonwealth Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia Tech. The winner of this game gets bowl eligible. Virginia Tech favored by 7 points. Kyron Drones is questionable.
Colin Schley is questionable.
Colin Schley is questionable?
Yeah. I'm going Virginia points.
I still think I like Tech a lot more, and they've generally owned this series. They've won the last 3. They won by 38 last year in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
There is also the possibility that Brent Pry is coaching for his job, which I don't think is unrealistic at this point, given given where Tech has kind of finished up this year, it's definitely been very disappointing. I'm going to go Tech. I like Tech at home minus the 7.
I'm going Virginia. The quarterback situation scares me away too much, and I don't think Virginia wins, but I think they're good enough to keep this pretty tight.
The Old Oaken Bucket.
Woo!
7 p.m. FS1. Purdue is 1-10. They're a 29-point dog against 10-1 Indiana for the Old Oaken Bucket. The Old Oaken Bucket, by the way, named via a poem. I almost made a video on this, named after a poem. Indiana minus whatever.
Yeah, limb from limb. Yeah.
8 p.m. CBS Sports Network. It is Nevada. It is UNLV. UNLV favored by 19 points here. Got to win. They get into the Mountain West title game. This is the battle for the Fremont Cannon, Dan.
Yes.
Some interesting historical points on the Fremont Cannon. Maybe the most expensive rivalry trophy. It used to fire, literally fire, until I believe UNLV dropped it by mistake, and no longer is it functional.
Ooh.
That's something you care about. Give me Nevada plus the points. I think Nevada puts them in the chokehold. I think UNLV wins, but this is close.
Nevada has lost 5 straight, but have been competitive, but it's been against Air Force has been disappointing. They lose that one by 3. Hawaii, they're not competitive against. Fresno, they are competitive against. It's really difficult to gauge. I think they're up for this game. UNLV trying to get into the conference championship game without injury. So I think they get up comfortably. Nevada comes back to at least cover this game.
We've also got Florida versus Florida State.
Yes.
Florida favored by 14.5 points. I'm on Florida minus anything.
Yes, same. Yeah, absolutely.
We've got Oklahoma at 6-5 against LSU at 7-4. LSU is favored by 6. Part of me wants to sensationalize a bit and say that Brian Kelly is also coaching for his job. I don't know if that's a real thing.
Okay.
I do know that there is obvious disappointment with where LSU has finished up this season. And maybe we saw a bit of a renaissance with Oklahoma beating Alabama in the manner that they did. Maybe we're going to see a lot more Jackson Arnold on the run. I think they can keep this close. I just don't know if they can keep it within the 6. I felt better about 14 last week at home. 6 on the road in Tiger Stadium at night feels like a different animal altogether.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma is just never going to be what they were last week often. Just the defensive scoring, the defensive putting your offense in position to score, big time plays from this defense.
I'm with you.
I think they regress to the mean in terms of total points, and they're going to find themselves in that 13, 14-point range. I don't love that Garrett Nussmeier has made some boneheaded mistakes this year, but I have this as 24-14.
I've got this at 19-14.
Oh, okay.
19-14, another stellar defensive effort from Oklahoma, but LSU wins.
Okay, fair enough.
The only other game that I've got here, because it's a good matchup, frankly, 8-3 Marshall, 8-3 James Madison. James Madison favored by 3.
Oh, man. I'm going Marshall. They've been pretty strong in conference.
I like Marshall in this matchup. I really do.
I think it's a nice matchup for Marshall. I'm going Thundering Herd.
If you are out and about amongst the people, download the Varsity Network app right now. It's free. Apple App Store, Google Play Store. You search for your school. You get the content that you desire about your about your college football team. We are on there. A bunch of other podcasts are on there. Our friends at the Varsity Network do an awesome job. Go and download that for free. There is one more game that we should probably discuss, Dan.
Uh-oh. Can you drop that big, stanky playoff drum and fife for me?
Woo! Baby, 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 baby. Let me cut the music for a second.
Please, take a knee.
Can I tell you how many people messaged me about Lehigh winning against Lafayette last week and then throwing the goalposts in the Lehigh River?
I would assume many.
So the Bethlehem Police Department did fish the goalposts out of the river.
Yeah.
For those interested, they got it. And now they are trying to find whoever was responsible for throwing it in the river to begin with. Good luck with that.
Does the Bethlehem Police have like a dedicated frogmen division for
an
scuba
amphibious
retrieval
assault team? Something.
Yeah.
I gotta believe they do. I got to believe they have something like that because Bethlehem is right on the river.
Yeah. Cars got to get fished out, investigated. Weird situations happen. Okay.
They fished it out. They are looking for those responsible. And of note, the Northampton County District Attorney, who would be, I guess they'd have jurisdiction over whoever the
tosser?
Assailants. I don't know what you say. Whoever the offending parties were. It is of note that the Northampton County District Attorney is a Lafayette alum.
Ooh.
So maybe
throwing the book at him.
Maybe a little bit of a little bit of bad blood there.
I like that.
Don't know if it goes full on recusal as a result. I don't know how these things work, but
who does Lehigh have round 1?
Lehigh has the Richmond Spiders in round 1, a historic FCS power.
Of course.
Richmond is a 10.5 point home favorite here against Lehigh Mountain Hawks, Dan.
How's the weather supposed to be in Richmond? Top of your head. Let me know. I know you just follow this stuff anyway.
I have absolutely no idea.
Come on, Ty.
I have absolutely no idea if weather will play a factor here.
Richmond, Weather Underground. That's my go-to source, Ty. Richmond, Virginia weather conditions for the FCS opening round playoff matchup on Saturday, Ty. You're not going to believe this. Monsoon-like condition. No. Saturday, it'll be in the 30s, low 40s. That's fine. I'm gonna go Lehigh to cover this one. How about that?
I'm going Lehigh outright.
Outright, baby.
Cover.
Who do they play? Who would they be playing in the second round of the FCS playoffs? Bring up the bracket as I vamp here, Ty. FCS playoff bracket. Who would Lehigh face? Not if, but when.
Yeah. When Lehigh wins, Lehigh would then, okay, where is this at now? I can't find it here. Let's see.
Idaho, it looks like, I think.
Idaho, you could beat Idaho. Come on.
Idaho was right there with Oregon week 1. The number 1 team in America.
Maybe they can't beat them.
Idaho's good. I like their coach a lot.
Let's go Mountain Hawks. Okay. All right. That's all we got.
That's it.
Thank you to one and all for downloading, for listening, for supporting what we do. Make sure you get on over to playruntheboard.com. We have not determined what the prize is yet. We have not been dropping any keywords throughout the course of this episode. We have been so transfixed by these rivalries in front of us that it feels like we haven't really given this prize its due.
Well, I mentioned cold weather.
We will have a very big prize next weekend for Conference Championship Week.
Yeah.
Conference Championship Week, we'll have all the games that are played on Saturday. We're going to mix in some player props. It is going to be the conclusion of our Run the Board game before we go headfirst into whatever game we do, Winter Wonders style, for bowls and playoffs and all that, which I have started working on already.
Yes.
You and I need to talk about that after the show. But as for this, the last weekend of the regular season, you mentioned cold weather.
Yeah.
Okay. We've obviously been talking about passion.
Of course.
Passion of rivalries, right?
Joy swing.
Joy swing at the beginning of the episode, sure.
Yeah.
We've talked about that. For sure, there is a lot of upset potential here.
Yeah.
To only further, I think, the emotional weight of some of these rivalry games.
Yeah.
And clearly this is a podcast. Clearly this is something that you're listening to.
Clearly this is, we can all agree.
That's right.
Yeah.
So cold weather, rivalry with passion.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously this is an audio only format. We want to give away some sort of like cool
It's
headphones.
not audio only. Everything can be viewed on YouTube.
Well, you need to listen to it. Otherwise you don't really know what we're talking about.
That's true. Okay.
Do we want to give away some cool headphone situation?
Oh, okay.
You like the cut of my jib here?
Yeah, you got any good Black Friday deals? Any Bose? Not a sponsor, could be. Any Beats? Any Apple?
Yeah. Let's give away a set of Bose headphones, Dan.
Noise canceling?
Let's give away noise canceling headphones from Bose.
Oh my God, Ty.
Yeah.
You're feeling saucy this week.
I'm feeling
okay.
saucy.
Big prize.
They're on sale right now. We're going to give away noise canceling headphones. I guess they're called Quiet Comforts from Bose.
Oh, I wear those all the time. They're impeccable. I love them.
Keep the ears warm. Keep the ears warm when you're on the plane.
Yeah, of course.
Noise canceling headphones have changed my entire life.
Oh my God.
Especially when I'm doing travel. They've changed my entire mood, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Give them away.
Great battery life with these. Charge them up. Last you a long flight. No problem.
That's what I'm talking about, baby.
I think that's a great idea, Ty. You nailed this one. Bose quiet comfort noise canceling headphones. Unless you're scared to compete, play runtheboard.com. Get those picks in for a chance to win. Beautiful, beautiful headphones.
We will be back midnight Eastern on Saturday night. We have done this show now a couple years running. Every year we do the Week 14 recap pod, the Rivalry Week recap pod, live on YouTube, live wherever. We might put it elsewhere. Who knows? Every week we do. Every year we've done this week. It has been one of our biggest shows. And there is a lot at stake here. So we would encourage you to stop on by, partake in the festivities with us. If nothing more, download the episode, the next one that drops bright and early on Sunday morning. Wherever it is that you are listening to this episode, we hope you are safe. We hope you're well fed. We hope you're happy. We hope you're out there amongst the people and enjoying all that this weekend has to offer. Whether you're celebrating Thanksgiving here in the States, whether you're out and about somewhere else in far-flung parts of the universe, just enjoying Rivalry Week in all its glory. Wherever this finds you, we appreciate your support. We hope you enjoy all that Week 14 has to offer, and we will be back to help decipher everything that transpired on Sunday morning, Dan.
I agree with all of that.
For that guy over there, my good friend Dan, for myself, Ty, as always, you know the drill. Stay solid.
Peace.